Welcome back, everyone. The FIDE World Championship match between Ding and Gukesh is about to start tomorrow, and there's a lot happening. Many people are talking about all sorts of things, and I wanted to make this video just to give you a brief overview and just tell you about what are my thoughts on the whole match, and also to just tell you about the regulations and these sorts of things, because I think it's often overlooked and not that transparent. Like, it's not easy to find out how things are done in this match if you're not fully into the chess world. So I just wanted to make an informative video on that. So Ding is playing against Gukesh. Ding being the current world champion, if in case you've been living under a rock, and Gukesh, of course, the young prodigy from India who won the last candidates tournament and therefore is able to play for the world championship title. And just to start off, I think everyone has heard about the current state of things with Ding's chess. So everyone is saying that Gukesh is kind of the big favorite now because Ding hasn't been in such a great shape for quite a long time. But we'll get into that later. At first, I wanted to touch on the more of the regulations of the event. One thing which I thought is interesting is the time control. The time control is, of course, pretty long, being a world championship match. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was 120 minutes for the first 40 moves, and then I think it was another 60 minutes for the rest of the game. And the increment only came after move 40. So the first 40 moves you were playing without an increment, which is quite interesting and which is not really implemented in a lot of other tournaments as far as I know. Yeah, it's 120 minutes per the first 40 moves and 30 minutes for the rest of the game. That was it. So I think we might be able to see some pretty long games. I would say that the maximum would be like 7 hours. But yeah, it shouldn't get any longer than that. Even 7 hours is quite unlikely, I would say. But yeah, that much for the time control. And about the format in general, so the first person to reach 7.5 points wins the match. So the maximum amount of classical games the match can reach are 14 games, and in case the match ends in a 7-7, which did happen in a couple of the previous World Championship matches featuring Magnus Carlsen, then the match will go into tie breaks, which people about this match in particular said that it's quite unlikely, since everyone sees Gukesh as like a very big favorite and everyone expects him to win the match even earlier than after 14 games. So yeah, this is about the about the total regulations in general. The match is happening in Singapore. I think I said it already. From what I've seen, it looks pretty well organized. The playing venue looks pretty cool. There was also the freestyle chess tournament featuring Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana, which was also interesting to have that kind of next to the World Championship match. There is also an open tournament, which is quite strong, happening. I think it's starting in a couple of days. I was even considering to playing there, but I haven't even mentioned that. I'm also commenting the event for League Chess, which I'm really excited to do. So therefore I decided not to play there, but rather to commentate, since I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be commenting on most days together with Laura Onuk, and on a couple of other days there will be other very exciting guests joining us. So I'm really looking forward to that. I will also be restreaming the live streams to my own channel, because League Chess is, they just have a fantastic team, and they're just communicating with all the people they work with. And the responsible person just asked me a little time before now if that would be something I'm interested in, and of course it is. It's a really cool thing. So yeah, what I wanted to say was the live streams will also be redirected to my channel, and of course you can also check them out from the League Chess channel as well. Another thing which I want to touch on is the previous head-to-head record, since I think that's the best way to kind of, also maybe not the best way, but one of the ways to make a prediction about the match itself. And actually it's hard for me to give like a like a good prediction. As I said before, I think 99% of chess players say that Gukesh is a very, very high favorite, which I cannot really argue with. But I don't really want to say that Gukesh is going to crush the match and is going to win like in a matter of 8 games. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Ding will also fight back. I really hope he does. He was for sure in a lot of psychological trouble as well since he became the world champion. I think we all know that. But I feel confident that he did his best to prepare for the world championship match. Also, I'm sure that both teams, both camps in Gukesh and Ding, they have very, very good opening preparation. That's for sure. About the seconds, as far as I know, that the only like known second in Gukesh camp is Gajewski and Gregor Gajewski, a Polish grandmaster who was also the second of Vishy Anand. And I also think that Vishy Anand does have some capacity of a helper, but I think more in a sense of a psychological and giving advice to Gukesh on how to handle his nerves. And I'm sure there are also many other Indian players helping Gukesh for the match as well. When it comes to Ding, I have a feeling, or I think I heard a rumor that that Richard Rapport is back in the team as he was before. So I'm sure we're gonna see some interesting opening novelties from that side if that's the case. And yeah, I think that's the most of the things that come to preparation. What's not really touched on is I think the political aspect as well. I am not an expert, but as far as I know, that China and India do have some rivalry between them. So it's not going to be that extreme like in the 70s during the Cold War with Fisher and the USSR. But I do think that there are for sure also some political things that might be involved, of course, for both countries. I think it would be quite painful to lose to the other one, but please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that regard. Yeah, that's also something of interest to me at least. Yeah, what I wanted to say was the head-to-head record, which I was actually surprised to see because I checked it today, that Ding and Gukesh played against each other 3 classical games. And okay, I'll give you some time to guess now. But Ding actually has a score of 2 wins and only 1 draw against Gukesh with fairly recent games as well. So I think one of them was in 2023 and the other ones were in 2024. And yeah, their previous encounter in the St. Louis tournament, which we will check out the games a bit later, it ended in a draw, but also their Ding was, I think, yeah, very close to winning at least, or he had great winning chances. So from their head-to-head record, it seems like, yeah, Ding does have some chances for sure. So it's gonna be, yeah, I hate to make these predictions. I don't think it's that clear as most people say. Also, there's a lot of pressure on Gukesh because everyone is saying that Gukesh is like the heavy favorite and that he has to win and everything else would be impossible to imagine. So just imagine you're Gukesh and everyone is saying you're playing against someone who is not at his best and he's not as good as you. So that also does put a lot of pressure on Gukesh, which I don't hear many people talking about. And yeah. Seconds I already touched on. Maybe about the schedule, there are always 3 games consecutively being played, and then there's always a rest day. So game 1 starts tomorrow, that's on Monday, and then we have game 2 on Tuesday, game 3 on Wednesday, and then there's the rest day, and that all continues. And yeah, as far as it goes for tie breaks, if that happens, we'll get to make another video. Other than that, yeah, Gukesh deservedly won the candidates and therefore qualified for the World Championship match. It's great to see him there. As far as I know, I think he's also the youngest challenger for the World Championship crown, even younger than Magnus Carlsen, if I'm informed correctly. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong. So it's kind of an interesting clash between the young generation of Indians specifically, and like the old guard who is still trying to fight back. So even though people say that this World Championship match is one of the least interesting ones they've seen in a long time, of course it's a bit painful to have a World Championship match without Magnus playing in it, but it's still a World Championship match after all, and both of the players, I'm sure, will put in everything they can to be able to win the match. So that brings me to the next thing, which is that I want to briefly go through some of their previous encounters and maybe try to see what both players will be playing for in the match. So the first game we're going to have a look at is also at the same time the first game that Gukesh played against Ding in a classical game, which was in the prestigious Vaikanze tournament in 2023. So it was last year, and yeah, this was one of the games which Ding won, being the black pieces. The game started by Gukesh playing d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, b6, g3, and we got bishop a6, one of the very classical lines in the Queen's Indian. Of course, bishop e7 being the other move. Bishop a6 does have the idea that, okay, black is trying to capture the pawn on c4, and however white tries to defend the pawn on c4, there will be some options for black. Queen c2 is the main move. When now c5, black will get some counterplay. So this idea with c5 is often an idea. After b3, which was played in the game, now c5 is not as good, because now white does have some chances to get the Benoni bind. Also here, bishop g2 right away might be a bit annoying with the queen still being on d1. This works better with the queen on c2, because now the queen on c2 can be harassed in some cases. b3 is kind of like the solid way to play, which also Gukesh did in the game, and Ding Liren went bishop b4 check, and after bishop d2, bishop e7. That all looks a little bit strange for black. First of all, to place the bishop on a6 when white can just defend the pawn on c4, and then to give this check on b4, and then just to go back with the bishop. But we will see a bit later that all of this makes perfect sense, and therefore is also a very reasonable way of playing for black, and it's also still theory for black as well, this line. White went bishop g2, that's logical, short castle, and now black plays d5, so this is the whole idea for him. And now Gukesh played knight c3, which is a bit surprising. The main line goes c takes d5, and after e takes d5, now all of a sudden it might make a little more sense to play bishop b4 check and then bishop e7, because now the bishop is somewhat misplaced on d2, and yeah, it would much rather go from c1 to b2 instead. So Gukesh played knight c3 first, Ding went c6 just to stabilize the center right here, and after bishop f4, knight bd7, cd5, now e takes d5, black, or Ding had also many other options, so Gukesh did not play the opening that critical here. Ding went for e takes d5, which transposes back to the structure we saw before. Also knight takes d5 or c takes d5 would have been very comfortable for black here right away. And after e takes d5, Gukesh already makes quite an awkward move, which is knight e1. Position is already very much okay for black, but after something like queen c2, black would for sure not be better. White can maybe slowly try to prepare a3 and b4, and yeah, in some cases maybe he can try to use this square on e5 with knight d5. Position is around balanced, but knight e1 yeah, is a bit too slow. He wanted to reroute the knight to d3, but even from there I don't see yeah, what it's doing. If it wants to go to e5, it could just do so from f3 as well. Ding goes rook e8, very logical play, knight d3, knight f8, very logical as well, bringing the knight to e6, and after bishop g5, knight e6, Gukesh took on f6, and after e3 now, Ding played a pretty nice move, which is knight c5, and yeah, he forces Gukesh to capture on c5 now, otherwise he would lose the exchange on this diagonal. So Gukesh took on c5, and now after bishop c3, the darks with bishop opened up beautifully. Rook c1, queen f6, and here Ding already has the initiative. He has the bishop pair. White's pieces are somewhat uncoordinated, and the bishops coordinate very well here. Gukesh played queen c2, now d4, again opening up the position even further for the two bishops. C takes b6, a takes b6, rook d1, rook d8. Very logical moves by Ding, so Ding didn't do anything that special here, but still, he got his chances. E d4, bishop d4, and now knight f4. This was, where things really started to go south. Gukesh should have taken on c6, but of course it's easier said than done. After rook c8, it does look very dangerous with this pin here. According to the computer, knight f4 still somewhat holds on, but also here it doesn't look very nice for white at all. You have to think about things like rook e2 already, when after knight takes e2, queen takes f2. Yeah, this does look pretty dangerous here, even though the computer is holding it. After rook takes d4, bishop f3, bishop takes f3. Black can never capture on c2 because of checkmate on d8, and there's nothing better than the perpetual here for black. So bishop c6 would have been the best way to hold on, but Gukesh went for knight f4, and now Ding found the very strong move g5, misplacing the knight on f4, and after knight h5, queen h6, bishop f3, defending the knight on h5, simply c5, and all of a sudden we can see the bishop on d4 is an absolute monster, and black is already much better. Gukesh tried g4, and here Ding found another very strong move, f5. Even though white has just enhanced his control on the knight on h5 and also of the square on f5, Ding still goes for this move. The point is that so Gukesh went knight g3 back here, but after queen takes f5, the point is that the bishop goes back with the tempo. And now if the queen moves back again, now rook f8, and all of a sudden the f-file is open when the pawn on f2 is quite a big target as well. Black is already, in the driver's seat would be an understatement. Black is already winning here. Gukesh went knight g3, which is the best try. F takes g4, knight f5, queen f6, bishop e4, and h5. And yeah, it's very tough for white to hold on here. Black is already a pawn up, and still he has the bishop pair. b4 followed, king f8, a3, and now h4, and yeah, now the pawns are just rolling. Moves followed, rook e1, and rook takes e4. I assume that Gukesh was already in time trouble here, because now after queen takes e4, Ding found the next brilliant move, bishop d3, and soon Gukesh resigned because he cannot take on d3 due to bishop takes f2, when the rook will take the queen on d3 on the next move. And yeah, in the game it happened queen e6, but after takes bishop f5. Black is just totally winning, even almost checkmating on the king side. So this was like the nice, last final blow here, but the position is already winning for black. Rook takes e4, I think, very beautiful, and then bishop d3. So this is where we can see how strong Ding Liren can actually play. And if he gets back to this form, and then I'm not sure at all what might happen. In their second game of their career, where Gukesh had the white pieces against Ding in the Tata Steel Wijk tournament 2024, so it was 1 year after their first encounter, Ding had the black pieces again, and also in this game he played an incredible game and just crushed Gukesh, basically. Gukesh started by playing e4, Ding went e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, d3, and we have the Jocko piano with bishop c5. And Gukesh went for this very modern way of playing with bishop g5 here. There are many nuances also. It's not entirely clear if the inclusion of a4, a5, who it favors and when it favors who. But I'm sure Gukesh did prepare that for that game. So he went back bishop h4 here, and now bishop a7, not the first engine move. Usually the computer just wants to go queen e7, and then in some cases g5, maybe bishop d7. And to keep the options for the king open, sometimes black wants to castle short, and sometimes he wants to castle on the long side. Ding went bishop a7, which does allow knight a3, and often, or as it happened in the game, after queen e7, knight b5 does win a tempo on the bishop, but Ding argues that the knight on b5 is anyway not doing that much. Gukesh went queen b3, g5, bishop g3, and short castle, and now Gukesh also castle short, and here we can see that the game is heading towards an incredible mess. Ding went knight h5, which is the best move, and Gukesh tries to open the position up with g4. Ding took, he accepted the challenge with e takes d4. What I would do maybe is something like king g7, maybe step out of this diagonal here. But as you can see, Ding was in quite a brave mood here to open up the center like this. E takes d4. Knight b takes d4 happened in the game. Knight f takes d4 might be a bit more accurate because as it happened in the game, after knight bd4, it does run into g4, hitting the knight on f3. So g4 happened, and Gukesh went knight h4, which is not a good decision. He should have taken on c6 instead. Of course, easy for me to say with the computer in front of me, and only now knight d4, when the position is still around balanced, even though it's not clear at all. During a game, black could do something bishop d7 followed by rook b8, when it's not entirely clear which king is worse than the others. So this position is just completely unclear. But Gukesh went knight h4, and now bishop takes d4, the right way to capture c takes d4, and now Ding simply took the pawn on e4. Black cannot take this, take it like this, with taking with the knight first, since after queen takes e4, now rook e1, queen h7, as it happened in the game. Now white has rook e7, which didn't work in the game because the knight was still on c6, covering the square. So yeah, that's what he did. Queen takes e4, rook e1, and he just went back with the queen to h7. So yeah, pretty brave play by Ding here, but completely accurate. He knew what he was doing. Gukesh went rook d2, which is a bit slow. Also not that clear to understand in some cases, because anyway, white can never really double rooks because the pawn on d4 will be hanging. Bishop d3 might have been better, forcing queen g7, and now knight g6 could be one way of playing, but also not entirely clear at all to find this on the board. This is just a computer suggestion when the rook is hanging here, and if rook d8, white has some counterplay with bishop h4. So that's, but yeah, as I said, not entirely human, all of this. Gukesh went rook d2 instead. Now Ding just followed up by bishop d7, and after he went bishop d3 now, queen g7, and now he went bishop f5. Ding took on f5, knight takes f5, queen g5, queen b5, covering the knight on f5, and Ding went rook e8, rook e3, and now knight g7. So now the knight on f5 is hanging, and Gukesh has to do something. He decided to take on g7, king takes g7, and d5. But here, white is already in a lot of trouble, because actually the king on c1 is now all of a sudden way unsafer than the king on g7. Ding took on e3, fe3, knight b4, queen takes b7, and simply rook e8. And now the pawn on e3 is also a big target. Gukesh played bishop f4, now queen f5, and here we can already see in how big of a trouble the king on c1 is. Gukesh played queen b5, knight a2 check, king d1, queen b1, and already the king has to run out. And here Ding found another very strong move, which is queen g1, not allowing white to maybe run into safety by king f2, and then maybe even to g3 in some cases, where it would be somewhat safe. But after queen g1, also the pawn on g2 is hanging, and yeah, therefore white is in a lot of trouble. Gukesh tried king d3, but now knight b4 check, king d4, king tried to run out here. Ding played queen e1, rook d3 was happening in the game already. Probably anything is winning for black. Ding played queen e2, and after rook c3, queen d2 check, king c4, rook e4 check. Gukesh resigned because checkmate is inevitable after king b3, queen d1 check, king a3. There will be checkmate on a2 like this. So I think now we've seen two games by both of these players, which especially now helps you maybe to see the whole match situation a bit differently. That Ding, if he's in his shape, that he can play absolutely amazing chess, as we've seen in both of these games, where he crushed Gukesh with the black pieces in quite a short time. So just keep this in mind for the match. Even though everyone is saying that Gukesh is a huge favorite, it might not be like this. It might be, of course, you never know. But I just really want to give Ding a shot, and I really hope to see him try his best as well. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this kind of preview on the World Championship match. As I said before, I'll be commenting on the Leech's channel as well, so definitely tune into that if you want to see me comment on the match live as well. I will also do daily recaps on the match as well. So after the game's ended, I'll do some recaps on that. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the match. Let me know in the comments who you're rooting for and who you think will win the match. If you did like this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Other than that, I will see you guys in the following days. So take care.